Hello, everyone, and welcome to our KMAI course. Today we are on session 11, halfway, session number 11. We are still in the cluster of sessions where we are speaking about software tools that are serving KM. Instead of doing things that, and activities and giving capabilities that we were used to give in classic ways, we are learning how AI can leverage them, how AI can turn us into clients, into people who enjoy the facilities of AI. Now, people enjoy it because it's going to be this time and the next session as well. But later on, we are stopping with these sessions. We are ending these sessions, and we're going to flip to flip the coin to the other side, and we're going to see how we are working, how we can serve AI. So we are still in the sessions where AI is serving us, and today we will meet Levitas. But before, I want everyone to join me together and to say happy birthday to Vincent, who celebrated 50 years, and he doesn't look more than 20. So please join me in happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Vincent.
Happy birthday, Vincent.
Happy 50th.
Happy
birthday, Vincent.
Happy
Happy birthday,
Enjoy
Dr.
Thank
Vincent.
you.
Enjoy your anniversary. Enjoy your
Live
anniversary.
long and prosper.
Thank you. Alpha Centauri already. Yes. So, yes. Thank you all.
Okay, so let's end it with just a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
So really, Vincent, from all of the team and all of the students and all the KMers around here, happy birthday, and thank you for being part of our team and helping us to leverage AI and leverage KM and have this synergy between them. So thank you and good day. Now I'm passing the leadership to Annie. Dear Annie, we missed you a few weeks, so please, you are here back with us, also
Yes.
leading and not only joining. So please, you continue, and we'll come back to the end, and then at the end we have a few announcements, and we will speak about what's going to happen next week, etc., etc. Please, Annie.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. And it's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Just a minute before you start speaking.
You mute. Maria, you mute. Okay. Okay. Well, this week we have Levitas, who is going to provide us with some user stories. And I'm going to read the write-up. Levitas works with businesses who want to understand, design, and deploy transformative artificial intelligence. They use an end-to-end process that has guided some of the largest companies in the world in their pursuit to unlock the value of artificial intelligence. From identifying the right use case, calculating the return on interest, testing a proof of concept, integrating state-of-the-art hardware, and scaling with proprietary vision models and applications. Their experience helps partners maximize success, mitigate risk, and avoid costly pitfalls. And you're hearing a lot of terms here that are great, because what this company kind of does in their services and also with their software is they make AI real. So they bring it into the businesses and the communities with the expertise. Who we have here with us is Nicole Talbot. Nicole is a delivery lead for Levitas, and she's going to take us through some of those user stories and experiences that she's had and how they've applied their solutions to help clients. So, Nicole?
Hi, good morning. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right, can everybody see my screen? Excellent.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm Nicole. I'm delivery lead here at Levitas. being on the project management team here at Levitas for over 5 years. And in that time, I've watched more than a few projects go from proof of concept to production by capturing visual data and organizing lakes of data and turning it into actionable insights. My role in the team has been to bring projects to fruition via logistics, like getting servers across the world to support our architecture for processing large amounts of data, team organization to making room for these minds to craft these models and build these solutions. So very much making space for them and timelines and expectations from others, along with strategic guidance and coordination over multiple teams. So our teams aren't just working with one client heads down. We're working over multiple clients. We're working over multiple product solutions and coordinating that and making sure that they are hitting all their deadlines and that we're meeting all of our expectations. And keeping that all in a nice package that nobody needs to know all of the dirty details about. So that is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Levitas. I know that Dr. Green gave you some initial insights about Levitas, but here at Levitas, we do work with businesses who want to understand the benefits of artificial intelligence. So we build end-to-end processes that unlock AI for lots of businesses. It's really difficult, or I would say it's very overwhelming for businesses when they like, okay, how do I AI? So we have come up with some capabilities that help businesses AI. So we start in the weeds building models. These are useful solutions that we develop using existing data, but also putting in the structures to capture new and complete data. So we use this data to gain insights. We integrate with various types of hardware for data capture, including drones, fixed cameras, CCTV, as well as robotics. And then we process and store the data for continued learning and model improvement. Levitas has patented a human-in-the-loop decision engine that complements our machine learning processes. And we'll talk about the necessity for human and machine collaboration shortly. So as I mentioned, we specialize in visual data capture or computer vision. From identifying the right use case, calculating the ROI, and testing the proof of concept, and then integrating state-of-the-art hardware and scaling. Our experience helps us maximize success and mitigate risk. In terms of capture, we do work with stationary and mobile devices, including CCTV cameras, drones, like I mentioned, but we also, as a partner of Boston Dynamics, we can help spot their dog robot see, or use our models so that we can actually intellectualize what the cameras capture. So the information is traditionally captured manually. We've now automated and then lumped together and dumped into server farms that usually just don't get used, or they're, in a lot of cases, incomplete data is captured. So we use our structures to make that, and machine learning to make that data captured more frequently, but also captured more accurately, and it makes it useful for humans in a decision-making process in business. So, but this doesn't replace human instincts, but it empowers human instincts with the process to process the facts, so they can not only continue to make decisions, but the data can continually be improved by that decision-making process. So I'm going to move into some use cases. The first one is for an electric company. We worked with a power company to develop a computer vision solution to identify a catalog of electrical components from drone aerial imagery. So drones fly around checking the equipment, looking at the components, looking for damage, and then we're able to capture and process this data in a way that allows intelligent predictive maintenance schedules. It identifies repair faulty components, and it avoids unplanned outages and unexpected failures in equipment. So that was one way we used drones to facilitate decision-making and knowledge management. For our second use case, we worked with an international power company. We used our Spot unit and we trained him to walk predetermined autonomous routes through their facilities to read gauges, capture the results, and send recommendations. But while also on this route, Spot will also run a model we developed for identifying person down. So situations where a human is not in the correct position. So sleeping on the job or injured and other serious situations. So in the case a person was down, Spot had the ability to switch missions on the fly based on what Spot saw and report after those protocols are met, reporting on the man down situation, was able in some cases to return to the original gauge reading mission where they left off or where Spot left off. So that's just another way that we utilized a robot in this case to gather information. These gauge readings would go into a system where a human in the loop could make a decision based on a reading being too high or too low, and in a lot of cases avoid failures in equipment. Okay, so we used, for a hospitality company, person analytics using CCTV or fixed cameras on a network. We worked with this travel company to build a computer vision solution to improve guest experiences. We used computer vision to count the guests on their on-site facilities in order to better understand wait times, inform staffing decisions, and make better recommendations to guests. So think about this. You're relaxing by the pool and suddenly you have a hankering for a burger. You jump into your application, you let the chatbot know, and it will return results not only based on your craving, but based on your wait time for once you reach that location and based on the proximity of your burger to where you are. The data this project provided not only enabled the AI to meet and exceed customer expectations, but additionally, and probably more importantly, it allows operations and management teams to assess needs based on guest behaviors, like adding extra staff or prepping extra food or prepping less food or using less staff depending on where your location is or where they're located or weather. So we were able to pull in additional information that wasn't captured by our CCTV cameras that correlated, like weather and numerous other points, in order to correlate and make over time we are able to say when it's sunny, guests tend to do this, or when it's raining, they tend to go here. So it really allows operations and management data and decision making based on knowing what the behaviors of their guests. So are you guys with me so far? Am I making sense? Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, dear Nicole. You are telling us you are demonstrating some very, very impressive results of AI. We are KMers. We are very, very interested in understanding A, how you achieve these results, and B, where can you contribute to KM work in general and to expertise management specifically.
Okay, well, I will get into rules in a demo that will demonstrate how we use some of our models to determine change detection later in the presentation, but I don't know if I answered your question.
Okay, whatever you can help us, we are with you. We are waiting.
Okay, awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions based Is everybody with me so far? Okay, awesome. All right, so the kind of how I structured the next few slides is in rules. These are rules for how to AI. So I think someone has a question. No? Okay. So rule number 1 is do understand why collaboration is critical. So humans and AI have complementary strengths and weaknesses. Many people think that AI replaces humans instead of enhancing, but ethical AI practices mean we don't go headlong into AI without understanding human involvement is key. And this balance allows the solution to be stronger and more resilient than each of them on their own. So being collaborative and really aiming for balance when it comes to how we utilize this technology in an ethical way. So that's the first rule. The second rule is choosing the right use case. So a common question is how much data do you need? And you don't need a huge amount of data, but you want to choose a use case where you have access to the data. That's the best place to get started is access. A lot of times getting the data together is the hardest part. And then iteration and experimentation is part of building solutions. So you really need to have buy-in from your stakeholders. It's important because it's a learning process. You're teaching a toddler to walk. This isn't an automatic solution. So automating inspection might take thousands of touches now, but over time, as you teach the technology, you'll be automating maybe 50 of those touch points into a smaller subset, and that can be largely valuable to your organization. So choosing a problem where the solution is valuable is key to getting the support to integrating AI into your current practices. Okay, so you want to set expectations, realistic ones. So you want to avoid people getting scared. You've spent weeks or months implementing a solution, they're not seeing results, fear sets in, or you've shown them a few videos of Spot on YouTube and they got really excited, but Spot's not quite there yet, and it's a marketing video, and so you've got all this hype around it. So don't get sucked into the pitfalls and set the right expectations to start with, because time and patience is important, and codependency is a good partnership for this solution. You can't expect things to just kind of fall into place. Like I mentioned, a toddler walking, you have to start with the basics and get there. So rule number 4 is to define your success criteria carefully. So this is a common issue with our clients. We're trained to think, our developers rather, are trained to think about precision and recall, but there's a gap that comes into place when you look at what businesses look at, which is like revenue. So defining the right measurable criteria is key to rolling out AI solutions. So think carefully about how to measure those successes. Don't default to tech performance metrics, and set measurable milestones. All right. Rule number 5, don't wait until your model is perfect to release it. Ship early, ship often. So we've set up the right collaborative system to get value early, and gaining and earning trust as well as feedback will continue to allow us to refine. So if you've defined incremental success as well, you will be able to illustrate success to your stakeholders. And it builds trust. It allows the rest of the team to be with you while you make these incremental steps towards autonomous AI. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning, putting these rules into place, putting these structures into place, is so that you can gain and garner this data that allows you to gain knowledge and insights about your products or your businesses, so you can make informed decisions. So that's kind of how you use knowledge management. So rule number 6, define the cost and time factors for your use case. So define the cost of mistakes and the value of successful predictions, and define the cost of human review. Think about how that scales. So you have a gauge that is going to read, it reads really hot. And when that particular piece of machinery fails, it costs $5,000 or $10,000 to repair it, let's say. Then you, on the flip side of that, you have a human that comes around and checks it 6 times a day that costs you X amount of dollars. You're going to want to weigh what the cost is for that human to do the checking and for the autonomous mission to determine if the machinery is too hot or too cold and make a reaction and send a human once instead of 4 or 5 times. So you just need to really understand the factors for cost. For implementing some of these solutions. So when to have a human intervene over when not to have human intervention. Rule number 7, don't design your AI model in a vacuum. Design your AI model with the end-to-end system in mind. It's one piece of the solution. It isn't a competition with humans. This means that the most optimal model is usually lower in precision, but higher in recall to shrink your haystack so that the size is more manageable for a human counterpart to the technology. So you want it to complement, you want them to complement each other, not necessarily overlap or overbear the other. And then rule number 8, do use human reviews to benchmark inference time performance. So what typically happens is the model will be trained and validated and tested and in production. You just cross your fingers. You just hope that it works. But with the system, with a human baseline, where the human is monitoring its performance, you're making sure not only that it's maintaining the baseline, but it's also improving over time. So plan to make human review and verifying benchmark for your model's performance. Rule number 9, do use human feedback to improve model performance. Every human review is another data point to improve future performance. This takes a lot of work to get right away. It's extremely valuable when it's done right. You want there to be disagreements because between the human and the model, because you want that space for improvements to be made over time. So that feedback loop will help automate things more seamlessly in the future. And rule number 10, do optimize human reviews for known soft spots and model performance. So targeted optimization has the biggest payoff. The best collaborative systems optimize the subject matter expert time around really hard cases, like if there's low light or the picture is taken at night. So you want to create rules or use a tool that does this automatically. All right, so I'll move into the demo. Give me 1 second to bring that up. That was much easier than I thought it would be. So these are a couple of models that we've created, or this is a model that we created, and these are a couple of use cases for it rather. So we've got circuit board and candy anomaly that I'm going to take you through today. Let me just, let's go. All right, so the first piece here is we're going to, once it loads, select an image. Reducing the anomalous parts of the image helps reduce what the model will look like. So we're looking for images with similar backgrounds, positioning, and that can help narrow down the focus for the anomalies. So we're gonna upload an image. There we go. It's not uploading. Give me 1 second here, guys. I don't know why it's not loading. I'm really sorry, guys. I think we're having some technical difficulties with the demo. I'm going to reach out to IT to see if we can have this fixed, but maybe if we want to move into some questions while we do that.
Hey, we do have one question from Edwin. He asked, does your service utilize augmented reality for implementation?
So we don't use augmented reality for implementation currently for the models that are being used. But if it was just the one question, that didn't give me a whole lot of time to.
How about, can you expand a little bit while we're waiting on how the outcomes of this can apply to KM, to knowledge management? Given artificial intelligence and some of your outcomes, how do they, and I think also with your Vensa decision engine, that might be a very good tie-in to KM.
Yeah, so our human in the loop, as I mentioned in the presentation, the collaboration between human and AI or our machine learning is really important. So our Vensa engine allows the information to come in from wherever the data source is, whether it's a data lake or visual capture. And we're able to take that information and, based on rules that you create, make a decision to whether or not a human needs to intervene. So if there's a bunch of photographs of a roof, and in one or a couple of them, it kind of looks like there might be some damage, but the model isn't sure, we would utilize the decision engine and get a human to take a look at those 2 images instead of 25 images and make the determination as to whether or not there was actual damage on the roof. So that would come back, the human would say, no, that's fine, or yes, that's an issue, and then the decision would be made based on that. So that's kind of how our decision engine comes into play in the process.
Okay. But can you expand a little bit on when you said gaps and recalls, that we tend to focus on that, but in business it's more of revenue. How do you actually reconcile those two?
Yeah, so developers are scientists in a sense, and they're trained to say, I need 100% recall or 100% precision or some mix of the two, but that is not how businesses look at results. Businesses are trained, business leaders, stakeholders are trained to think about their business in revenue, for example. So sometimes precision and recall, or you want really high recall or really high precision based on whatever the objectives of your business are. So for example, if I had these roofs and the model is always sure, always shows you when there's an issue, but sometimes there's not an issue, but the model's never missed an issue, that might be more valuable for you to check a few more images and always find the issue than in some other cases where if something gets missed, that would be a huge problem for the business. So those are the kinds of balancing acts that our developers and our teams have to, have to balance when going through and deciding what these factors will be.
Okay. There's another question from John Lewis. Says you used the phrase help them intellectualize the data. Can you elaborate on how you intellectualize?
Yeah, so a lot of cases, data is spreadsheets with numbers and codes and all kinds of things that are separated. And so what our procedures, what AI allows us to do is to look at that data and create graphs and create other ways to automatically look at it, to not only for its monitoring over time, but to allow humans to load that into Power BI or Tableau or whatever their software might be and react to the data instead of looking through spreadsheets or just having the stuff stored somewhere. It makes it actionable. It intellectualizes the data for human consumption, for decision making. Does that make sense?
John?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I like that term, making it actionable. I think that clears it up. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
Okay. And we have one more
Our developers
from Hookah.
Go ahead.
Do you do much to deal with unstructured data, e.g. a document? Example.
So I think if I'm understanding this question correctly, is you've got a whole bunch of data and you don't know what to do with it and it's not organized. We have data scientists that will comb through the data based on a use case. So we'll sit down, we'll talk about some of the problem statements that you might have, and then the data that you have, and we'll look for ways to create solutions around that data. So you might have a problem that you don't have data for, so we can't help you there yet, but we can utilize what data you have, create, identify use cases and create solutions based on the data that you have. And then we can also help you put structures into place, or we help you put structures into place so that you're starting to collect data going forward for those gaps or holes that you have in your data for the solutions you're looking for.
I think, let me gather on that one too, because the structured and unstructured data, like, do you, I guess, have repositories of documents, images, those sort of things that aren't necessarily structured, that you can tag and, also set up ways of retrieving them?
Absolutely. So, so we don't keep those repositories. We help set those up for our clients. So it's, in a lot of cases, this data is highly confidential, and so we don't have them on any of our servers, but we work on their servers, we work in their environments to create those structures with the data.
Okay.
So for the most of the time, I mean, it's very rare that we come across a company, especially right now. It's going to change as we move forward, that has data that's structured properly for AI consumption, for reaction even. I mean, if you think about some of the manual processes that humans do now, when we bring up a spreadsheet, there's a whole process for making pivot tables and graphs and putting that into decks or imagery so that you can report upline, integrating these spreadsheets into your Power BI or Tableaus. It's a very manual process. And at first, AI is also a manual process, or utilizing AI for your data is a manual process and putting these structures into place. But once they're done, you're moving forward, you're capturing data, you're capturing more complete data, and this stuff is becoming actionable for your business.
Okay. What was that?
I'm sorry about this
someone
demo.
else's examples. They said, do you have any examples of small scale, small scope, anything relating to nonprofit works? Any use cases in that? Yeah.
So it's not nonprofit, but something that might be beneficial to a nonprofit would be, right now we have a client in the medical field, and right now we're developing a natural language processing model for recognizing terms and organizing documents that are pages and pages long. So allowing that, we're using nurses and other subject matter experts to tag the materials. And this will allow these documents to be quickly searched, quickly referenced. This is documentation that's individual to a person. So my medical records could be pages long. It's allowing us to organize that data in a way that's searchable, a way that's actionable, and a way for this business to look for correlations across, within HIPAA laws, across multiple, we'll say, diseases, to find solutions that could work for improving the patient's situation. So not necessarily cures or anything, any big words like that, but but really looking to organize big documentation and recognizing and searching within those documents. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, let me ask a question about your medical, what you just asked for, because thinking about like taxonomies and language, and you said you use expertise from the nurses in order to tag this. Is there like a universal language that they use, or is it isolated to just the individual hospital or clients that are building their particular system within? In other words, if every hospital has a different language, then that can kind of prevent the union of that data to have a wider spread of actionable data or knowledge that supports an entire healthcare system.
So just for one clarifying question for me, Dr. Green. So you're asking about languages with regard to different countries, or just the way that the hospital names things and is
across the
individual to them?
hospital, yeah, across the hospital
Okay.
system. I'm thinking like even with their electronic health records, one of the reasons I asked
Right.
that is because of Watson. That was one of the reasons that it wasn't successful, because it was isolated to one area. And so I'm thinking, when you're getting expertise, are you getting that expertise from one source, or are they also reaching out and building upon other sources as well?
So this is still, well, we've just moved past the proof of concept. So right now it is isolated to a couple of smaller subsets, but that will be expanded over time and over this client's base. But another example, just to mention, is a construction company we're working with. And we did this out also for another power company, where we're taking some of their typical projects, or all of their projects really, and looking for ways to schedule their employees or their needs based on timelines that have worked or not worked in the past. So identifying risks in like projects and able to kind of find other ways to schedule or make a recommendation so that the human can then react and say, and make those tweaks. Ultimately, the human in the loop will make the decision on the scheduling, but this allows them to see what's happened in the past. It doesn't remove human instinct, but it allows it to be empowered, the instinct to be empowered by data and facts. So
Okay.
just kind of another way that we utilize AI, and maybe could be applied towards a nonprofit, is looking for places that you need employees or people are scheduling over multiple projects, depending on what your nonprofit serves, could really be substantial for decision making.
Okay. Is your tool ready to demonstrate now, or you want to continue with the questions?
Sorry. We can continue with questions. I'm checking right now to see if it's
Okay.
running.
Okay, there are a couple more.
Okay.
There is one here that gives a scenario, and let me get the scenario. This is from, okay. An example KM use case might be I have 100K documents in a repository, and I know basically nothing about them, no reliable tags, etc., other than the words in the documents. And I want to know what topics am I missing, and therefore what content should I create? Gap analysis. Is that a use case you would be able to work on? And if so, how might your product approach it?
I mean, obviously, for me, the obvious starting point would be tagging and getting subject matter experts in there to look for correlation across the different pieces of content. But I'm not sure exactly how the team would approach that. So I would want to take that question to one of our data scientists and get back to you if it's possible.
Okay. And then we have another question. How does growth of an org's knowledge impact the maintenance of a deployed AI model? And what is the best method on how to conduct that maintenance?
I'm sorry, you broke up in the beginning of that question.
How does, yeah. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Am I clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How does growth of an org's knowledge impact the maintenance of a deployed AI model? And what is the best method on how to conduct that maintenance? How are you sustaining it through its growth?
Right. So the growth of the organization, so you're saying more people would be involved with the model or the decision making, or are you saying the growth of the data?
I believe the growth of the organization. Lene, if you'd like to jump in, you can help clarify the question.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Yes, Nicole, I'm talking about the organization's knowledge. As more people or the experience of the people in the organization, their knowledge continues to grow. So how do you capture that and make sure that it gets included in the AI model? Because your organization is getting smarter. Is your AI model also getting smarter? Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Lene. And thank you, Dr. Green, as well. So I think that's a great question. And I think that the ways that we, like I mentioned before, that we grow our models is we have that interaction, that feedback loop with the human. So if you're gaining knowledge as a human being, that feedback is going right into the model. And like I mentioned, the disagreements. So, hey, I think that the model produces this roof has a leak. No, it doesn't have a leak. That is actually leaves or a buildup of dirt or other matter. And so then the model learns, okay, this is what leaves look like. So that's a very basic example. I know that things are going to be more complicated than that, but that is what will feed that knowledge growth.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do have the demo, unless you wanted to continue with questions.
I have one more question, so I'll ask that one and then we go to the demo.
Okay.
It just disappeared. Okay, let me bring it back up, the question. Do you have a rule for how to best pick the right business or operational situation to first attempting AI in an organization? To first attempt AI in an organization?
Okay, so I don't have a rule specifically, but a lot of the rules cover this. But picking the use case is the most important first step into introducing AI into your business. That's because you don't want to say, hey, give me $50,000, whatever amount. Give me a whole bunch of money and I'm going to go throw it at the wall and see if we can make AI work. And then when it doesn't, you've kind of disillusioned your stakeholders. So choosing the right use case, identifying the right stakeholders, setting the right expectations, this crosses the gambit of some of the rules that I went through. So how we approach use cases is we sit down, as I mentioned, we talk about your problem statements, and we evaluate the data that you have, and then we look for the right use case that will help launch you in. So for example, right now we're engaging with a manufacturer that we're doing a use case that isn't necessarily the most beneficial for their business, but it's the most likely to show progress quickly so that the stakeholders can understand the value faster. So that was more valuable to this manufacturer than going down the long road of making it of the ROI road. So in some cases, ROI is the most important thing. Return on investment is the most important thing. And in other cases, showing or producing results is more important. So some stakeholders are able to see that value by seeing results faster, and some need it to make them money back faster. So it just depends. Hope that answered your question. And if there are any additional ones, Dr. Green, we can quickly go through this demo and grab those questions after, because I think this will be valuable for people to see. So
Yes,
this is
yeah,
our
move
change
forward.
detection model. So in this case, the model is looking for images with similar, with equipment. So for example, we're trying to identify if there are vehicles or obstructions like ladders or cones in the way. So I'll just show you here. We're going to upload this image into the model. The model will process and classify the items in the image. So I'm going to expand on this a little bit. If you have spent a couple $100,000 on a robot and you're walking it through a facility where there are high-speed vehicles or large vehicles that can crush or destroy your investment, you want to protect that investment. So teaching that visual capture device to recognize threat or obstruction is important. So this is part of the reason why we developed this change detection. So if Spot, for example, is used to walking along this route and doesn't know that the ladder is there, we want to teach Spot to be able to see a ladder or an obstruction. So in this case, it's classifying it as a ladder. We've got some fire extinguishers here. Let's see if it notices. It is able to, with 92% confidence, acknowledge that these are fire extinguishers. And let's, for good measure, no objects were found. So this is a clear path for your autonomous robot or your visual capture device to go through. So this could be a drone, this could be a walking robot. And then if your fixed CCTV cameras are taught to know that in this specific area, there shouldn't be anything in the way, and someone leaves a piece of equipment in the way, it will notify the human in the loop. There seems to be some sort of obstruction here, and then the human can send someone down instead of having people checking or moving it. You're just optimizing your processes. Let's see here if we have these yet. Please. These are really cool demos, so I really want to be able to show you them, but they're not populating for some reason. So I think that you get the gist, and I can click a couple more if you guys are interested in seeing object classification. But I think that concludes things. So here we've got a fire extinguisher and a ladder. So it's obviously able to see more than one thing at a time. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. I appreciate you guys listening as I walked you through
Hold on.
some of these items.
Are there any additional questions for Nicole?
Yeah, Annie and Nicole, let me ask it, can I ask it verbally rather than banging away in the chat room?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so we're all KMers, and one of the things that we KMers do a lot is, or are tasked with capturing expert knowledge, right? Capturing knowledge from experts and then putting that in form that can be shared with other people across the organization. And a lot of that knowledge, it's deeply embedded. We call it tacit knowledge, right? Deeply embedded in the expert's head. What I liked about what I've seen from what you've shown us, I would almost call it life through the eyes of a robot. Because most of your slides in the presentation would be computer visualization. You're identifying objects, and then next to each object you had the properties of that and values of that object. And so that's how kind of you build the world. My question is, have you applied your tool to capturing expert knowledge by observing the behaviors of experts? Because in particular, whenever we in our world have to capture expert knowledge from, let's say, technicians working in the field or people who are working with their hands, they're out in the field, they're troubleshooting, they're making observations. Very often, and that's that tacit knowledge at work, an expert can see something, they know something's wrong, and so they jiggle this, they twist that. That's often hard to capture in a document. And very often the way that's done is you get the person who wants to learn that and say, go ahead, you work with this person, you observe it, go ahead, you mentor, mentee almost. You have the learner attach themselves to that expert and they just watch and observe. And that's kind of a crude way of doing it. So my question is, can your technology be used? Can you use that visualization and the AI machine learning? Have you applied that to the task of observing experts in action over a period of time so that you can then capture what it is they're doing and then pass that on to others?
So not exactly in the way that you're saying, for someone to learn from someone who is an expert, but I would say that we are using human beings as the expert, and the AI is learning how to think more like a human. So in observing and learning from human behaviors, the AI is enhancing its knowledge base and getting more intelligent, if you will, based on the specific task that it's being trained to learn. So in a way, we're doing that. We're not doing that in quite the way you described, but I think it's very related.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. We have a question from Jerry that asks, what are your thoughts about Vision AI for categorizing the content?
I'm not
Did you hear me?
sure. Yeah, I heard you. So using visual AI to categorize content?
Mm-hmm. And Jerry, feel free to jump in if you want to.
Yeah. Can I get some clarification there, Jerry? Sorry.
Yes, Nicole. So this is one of a custom vision.ai from Microsoft, right? That is one thing that we are trying to understand. What are your thoughts about custom vision.ai?
I'm not really sure I'm understanding the question very well. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll add on to it. There is custom vision.ai from Microsoft. That is one of the technology that we are trying to explore more. So just for categorizing of the contents, for building a similar model similar to this, right? Getting the taggings with respect to the images, extracting the taggings or metadata from the images. So it's similar product, similar to this demo that you have given. So that's one thing I was just curious to know if you had a chance to explore.
Yeah, so the change detection, we are teaching the models to see and categorize things. I think that's what you're getting at. So for example, the safety cones, the ladders, the golf carts, the different moving machinery, the forklifts. So we are using categorization in order to identify what's being visually captured. So Spot isn't necessarily recognizing like, oh, that's a golf cart. He's recognizing, or it is recognizing that there's something moving and that is threatening to me. So I should stop, or I should flash my lights so I'm more noticeable, or whatever reaction that is going to prevent the risk. So in that way, we are categorizing. One of the use cases I talked about was people counting. So we had thousands and thousands of images where we were, our taggers were identifying human heads, but also identifying when the model would identify a chair, we were letting it know, like, no, that's a chair, that's a table, you know, that's a piece of furniture, to whatever degree that it ended up being. So that, again, to Lene's question earlier, is allowing the model to categorize and recognize that that's not a human head and it's learning. But also, to your question, it's allowing us to categorize and understand these different objects. And I hope that answers your question.
That helps. Thank you, Nico.
And I have one more. Okay. I have one more before we kind of begin to wrap it up. There is a nice software that captures rapid eye movement, and it gives a good demonstration of behavior and tacit knowledge. Do you know the name of that software, or would you happen to be familiar with that software?
I don't. Rapid eye movement capture. I will get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's all of our questions, and I see no hands up. Thank you so much, Nicole, for this presentation.
Thanks, guys.
I enjoyed it. I'd like to kind of wrap up a little bit with kind of recalling, as you would say, what we're kind of looking at as KMers, especially when you're crossing that path between AI and KM. I think sometimes that we forget that the sensors are also sources of our data, which will give us insights into how to make better decisions. So there are a lot of sensors out there now that are going to be collecting lots of data that's going to have to be either categorized, tagged, put into some type of structure so that it actually supports what we're doing. I thought it was really interesting when and that's expert knowledge. I was interesting when the man down, okay? So you have this man down and you don't have to have anybody walking around, but there had to be someone or the expertise that says, this man is down, and even go further in saying whether it's someone sleeping or someone who's actually fallen. So that helps us to continue on. And this still, I think, brings back the connection between intelligence, which is actionable data that will move us forward to knowledge, which helps us to make the right decisions at the right time. And I think that outside of databases, we also need to get into the point of understanding that sensors, which is part of the way humans are developed, we have, we have cognition, we have sight, we have hearing, and all of those things are also going to be contributing toward what we're capturing in our trusted data, so that we as KMers can improve our outcomes. So thank you. I appreciate your presentation, and I'd like to open it up for Maria or Art or anyone else to add comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are now ending. Next week, I hope we will be speaking about data visualization and how visualization helps KM projects. Meantime, Art, before we really end, Art wants to add one note for all the US volunteers. So Art, please do.
Yes, as you know, the part of the plan was as your part of your tuition, you could choose to take this course at a reduced rate in return for contributing as a volunteer to our vast organization. And many of you have opted to do that. And some of you are assigned to be volunteers to help out the United States arm, the USA arm of KM Global Network, the International Institute for Knowledge and Innovation. And just wanted to remind you that we are having a meeting immediately following this meeting. And I put the link in the chat box. If you're in that group of volunteers for the US, you've already received an email announcement, but just wanted to remind everyone and follow it up. If you do it, we won't take a lot of time, but we definitely wanted to get together online for the first time and kick around ideas as to what we can do to make the best efforts win-win for your efforts as volunteers, and hopefully you get something out of it as well. So that's coming up right after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and hope you enjoyed today, and hope you will enjoy next time as well. Bye, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Maura. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.